Hello everyone, welcome to a short but special edition of On the Whistle. It's almost time, the last game of the season is here, next stop Wembley. Just been down the Academy Light to speak to Régis Le Bris about all things Sunderland versus Sheffield United in the Championship playoff final. So I thought I would do a very quick video just to preview the game a little bit, bring you up to speed with a few bits and bobs. Before we all set off for Wembley. Obviously the main thing everybody wanted to know coming into this press conference was about the injury situation, the fitness situation. Now, as you can imagine, Le Bris wasn't going to give too much away. He doesn't want Sheffield United to know what his team is, who's fit, who isn't. But actually it was probably quite encouraging on the whole. Obviously we know that Romain Mundle is recovering from this hamstring issue, which is a long-term process really for a second injury of the season of that nature. Patrick Roberts, we know, was playing through with a bit of a calf issue in the second leg. But the update from Le Bris was pretty positive. He said everyone is available, ... more or less. A little bit later in the press conference, he spoke with the newspapers about the situation and was just sort of basically saying that he hasn't got 100% availability, but he's hopeful that people can manage pain, can play through injuries, if you like, and therefore everyone can play a part, at least at some stage, across the game. So we'll have to wait and see whether everybody makes it, but certainly the indication from that was that he would at least be able to name Mundle and Roberts in the squad. And I think it sets up from sort of previewing the game. He's got a couple of huge decisions to make because he's got to think about not just the first half of the game, but he's got to think about it in its totality and potentially the fact that it could be a 120-minute game. Clearly, the first choice he's got to make is whether he goes with the 4-4-2 or the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-3-3, depending on kind of how you look at it. The 4-4-2 has worked really well against Sheffield United on New Year's Day. We obviously know what Meander and Isidore can bring. But I think obviously the challenge with that is that A, are you willing to surrender control of midfield in such an important game as this one? And B, it also means that if you play both those strikers from the start, one of them can't come on from the bench and bring that pace and energy. And I really do think this is going to be a massive part of where this game is won or lost, because I think Sheffield United have got two huge strengths. They've got a defensive sturdiness, a good defensive organisation that stood up really well over the course of the season, a fantastic goalkeeper as well, and Michael Cooper is someone who I've rated for a very long time since I first saw him at Plymouth. But what they've also got is quality and depth in abundance, and I think depth is the key word. You know, you watch the first legs against Bristol City, they weren't actually really making the most of the man advantage they had after Rob Dickey was sent off until the second half when Wilder was able to bring on Tom Davies and Callum O'Hare. And I think to bring players off the bench of that calibre, and that's with Ben Brereton Diaz out with illness for those games, who is now available for the final, you begin to see that the big advantage Sheffield United have in this final is squad depth. And that's why I think it's so important that Le Bris has players on the bench who can change the game. And so it'll be interesting to see whether he takes a gamble with the two strikers or whether he goes with one so that he has a potential game changer on the bench. And I think that will obviously dictate where he then goes with the rest of the team. Obviously, the ideal scenario, hopefully Mundle and Roberts are fit, potentially opens up the scenario of playing Enzo Lefebvre in the middle, which hopefully gives them the most opportunity possible to get on the ball and dictate the game and maybe produce that bit of quality that we know he can do. I have to say that speaking to Le Bris as ahead of the semi-finals, absolutely no change in his demeanour whatsoever. He was very clear that everything had been the same this week. He's keeping the players in a bubble. He's not letting any outside noise in. You know, I think we've talked about it a lot this season, but Le Bris's biggest strength is his temperament, and I think he exudes that level of calm and that consistency of his emotions to the players. And I do think that's a big asset going for Sunderland going into this playoff final. He talked a little bit as well about VAR. Obviously, it's going to be a bit different. VAR was used for the Sunderland versus Wycombe playoff final a few years ago, but thankfully there was never any particularly major instance in the game that required it. The players had a meeting. A Premier League referee came in at the end of last week, Le Bris was telling us, to talk them through things that might be different, things that they have to be aware of. Clearly, because of the semi-automated offside system, that's the difference. But also a big thing was how you can do, or more to the point, how you can't defend set pieces and what you've got to be aware of with VAR. So that's going to be a really interesting one to watch. Sheffield United have a really good set piece record, and that's a big thing for Sunderland defenders. They've got to do the job, but they've also got to be mindful that potentially some things that they might be able to get away with week to week without VAR, they might not be able to with that technology in place. So it was really interesting to get his thoughts on that. Listen, I think everybody knows this is a huge game for Sunderland. I'm really excited about it in the sense that I think the players massively, and certainly the fans, massively deserve this day. I think it's been a long season, but the players have shown an awful lot of fight and resilience to get this point, even when the football hasn't been sparkling. I think they've shown a lot of spirit and organisation and resilience to get us to this point. And I think that it's nice going into a game knowing, which maybe wasn't quite the case with some of the big League One playoff finals, that the foundations are really strong, no matter what the result is. And I think that enables everyone to go there with a lot of confidence, but also a lot of sort of calm and enjoy the occasion. Listen, naturally, if Sunderland don't win this game, there are going to be players who leave, and it could be a difficult rebuild. You never know what lies ahead. But it certainly feels like the foundations of the team and the club are as strong as they've been for a long time. And listen, I think that Sheffield United's position is favourites is probably the right one. Because of the points that they've won over the course of the season, as I say, that strong defensive record, and also just the depth. I think that does, the quality that they have because of the players they've been able to sign as a result of being in the Premier League and the parachute payment subsequently. There's every chance that tells, but it's, we saw over the 2 games this season that there's not a lot between them on the day. We saw some were excellent in the games against Burnley. They fought really well in the games against Leeds. There's absolutely no reason to think that this group of players can turn up and deliver and be really competitive and potentially go and get a result. So yeah, fingers crossed that they can produce that on the day. So all that's left for me to say is have a fantastic weekend, safe travels, stay safe in London, look after each other, come and say hello if you see me round and about. Always nice to meet everyone. Fingers crossed, and how are the lads? And as ever, thanks for watching.